All right, now to our first conversation. As Nigeria navigates a complex economic landscape with inflation ticking up to 15.93% in the recent data, consumer wallets are under persistent strain. We're asking, what does the modern Nigerian consumer really look like, today? We're dissecting the battle for the shelf. How are, FMCG giants balancing the tightrope of affordability against the need for profitability? And what sets the thriving market leaders apart from those struggling to stay afloat? Joining me for this conversation, we have Mr. Narendra Nagarkar, as the CEO of Bhojsons PLC, a diversified Nigerian conglomerate involved in manufacturing, trading, distribution, and industrial services across multiple sectors. The company is part of the broader Bhojsons Group, which has operated in Nigeria for over 150 years. Great to have you on the show, sir. Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yes.
150 years. That means you've gone through different cycles, economic cycles in the country, different precedents. That's incredible. What's it been like so far?
I think it's been a beautiful journey in a great country like Nigeria. 150 years, transiting from core trading to supermarkets to now manufacturing, now becoming one of the leading woven sack manufacturers in Nigeria, also into the automobile sector, mostly into the 2- and 3-wheelers businesses. I think it's been a huge journey for the company, for the family, and we are thankful to Nigeria. I don't think I can say anything more than that.
Right, but what do you think keeps a company steady in a country for over 150 years? Is it profit? What keeps a company?
I don't see that profit is the only driving force after 150 years. The focus of the management has been how can we create families, how can we create a structure which can help people grow in the organization, and we make an organization which is conducive to people. 150 years plus, profit becomes one of the factors. We have employees who have worked with us for more than 35 years, more than 40 years, so they're part of the family. And that's what, kicks us around and it makes us relevant. And one important factor is that with the changing times, we changed. And that is what has kept us relevant even today after 150 years.
Yeah, so I guess for a company to stay on for over 150 years, when you see change in your market, you find a way to change, with the times. Quite interesting. And talking about change, looking at inflation, over the years, we've hit highs and, lows, but I guess for the average consumer, it'll feel like we've seen the highs for the longest time. We keep paying more, for stuff. And looking at headline inflation now, the one for May, 15.93%, food inflation at 17.8%. This is after rebasing though, but now they say we have, what to look out for when we're comparing, inflation data. GDP growth, 3.89%. I'm sure in the company's operations, you saw GDP growth much higher than this at some point, maybe 6%, 7%, GDP growth. But now we're celebrating 3.89%. So it shows that there's some pressure, right there. So looking at, consumers at this point, their disposable income is being torn apart from different sides. How has the consumer, the Nigerian consumer, evolved over the years, in your view?
I think I would like to say here that the Nigerian consumer, we need to take our hats off for him, because he is, and I am not biased when I say he, it could be he and she.
He, she,
they have been very, very, very accommodating. They have been very smart. They have been very adjusting. They have seen the highs and lows, and probably the low that we saw a couple of years back created or probably trained the new generation to adjust to what could happen to an economy. And hats off to them again, and to the Nigerian government for bringing us back into a relevant mode where we can see a good future for the country. We are now in a stage where we have been stable in terms of forex for a long period of time. This gives a very positive signal to the industry. The industry would then bring in investments, and that would be a very positive sign for the consumer going forward. Because if the industry invests, there's employment. Employment brings in a lot of funds into the market. The funds brings in a lot of stability, and products would get innovated to the needs of the consumer. Because as we have seen in the last at least 5 to 7 years, the consumer industry has moved towards smaller packs and smaller packs and smaller packs to fit into the pocket of the consumer. Because what was affordable probably 5 years back is out of the pocket range for most of the consumers today. But thankfully, the innovation of the industry has helped the consumers to manage and also ensure that they give a positive signal to the industry that we are with you.
Right, and talking about trying to meet the consumer where they are when it comes to affordability, there's also that talk of shrinkflation, where the packages get smaller, but somehow they stay at the same price. What do you think is the way around that? For most of these other companies.
Shrinkflation is a terminology which came up with the so-called marketing, and it was more of, as you rightly said, adjusting to the pocket. Probably a 1 kg pack was not affordable because with the forex rates floating around, you would not be able to sell it at a price which a consumer could afford. So you keep a benchmark of the previous price and reduce the grammage to an extent where the consumer can still buy it. But there are smaller packs also. There are packs which like if you take I think the best example would be in the powder milk segment, where the sachets have been operational in Nigeria for more than 20 years now, thanks to some of the few companies who initiated this procedure and the market innovation. I think that's the way forward, adjusting to the pocket of the consumer and making sure that at least his daily needs are met in a proper way.
Right, and you did mention, stability. When it comes to the forex market, it's been a while. We've been stable for quite a while now. Do you still have flashbacks sometimes to the time where we'd see the currency fluctuating against the dollar? We got as weak as 1.8. Do you still
to a point.
Almost touched 2000? We're almost there. We're on the verge of that. Do you get flashbacks sometimes to those times?
We would, as an industry, look at these things as learnings. What we have seen, what we have learned through this process. I don't think we need to give any knee-jerk reactions to these things, but it's good to be prepared. I'm sure this will not happen again, as they say in Nigeria, by the grace of God. But I would say that this has given us a lot of lessons and made us more prepared. I think that's the only way I would like to put it.
Right. And how would you describe the business environment, say in the last 2 to 3 years, so far in Nigeria? Would you say the business environment is encouraging you to bring in more money, into Nigeria?
Yes, definitely. Not only from the sectors that we work with, but across sectors, we are seeing a lot of positive vibes. Even when we travel outside, we hear good things about Nigeria coming back on track. And that is an indication which shows that investments will definitely come into Nigeria. It's already showing, if you look slightly far, the investments are already coming up. You would see across industrial areas, development is happening. So that's a very, very positive sign for Nigeria.
All right, let's look at balancing affordability, with profitability. You did mention, trying to meet, the consumers, where they can actually afford this. But how much are you willing to take, to make sure the consumer is able to stay, able to afford, stuff?
Yeah.
How do you balance that? Affordability, profitability?
It's a very difficult question, and I don't think there's a one-line answer to that. It depends on what product category you are in and what level of qualities you would be providing to your consumers. So if you're providing a very premium quality product, there would be a slight limitation in terms of how much you can reduce the size. I'm talking from a food perspective, where shrinkflation, as you rightly said, till what level can you do that? Otherwise, you become irrelevant for the consumer. On the other side, there could be, options B and option C available to the made available to the consumers, and that would also give them a second stage of affordability. So you could probably look at, just for an example, from a full cream milk to a filled milk, which could be two different variants available at different price positions and at different pack sizes also. So there are different ways and means at which you can create those structures to remain relevant for the consumer.
All right, so definitely we have investors, local, international investors that might be looking at this sector and saying, you know what, I might be able to make some profit in here. For you've been here the longest time. Do you think other investors are looking to come into this market in Nigeria?
Yes, I would not be very sure about which sector, but yes, a lot of food and infrastructure companies are coming into Nigeria.
Well, and you think they're actually, optimistic, that...
yes.
Because I'm trying to understand, a cost of living crisis. When a country has a cost of living crisis for a long time, it almost seems like a discouraging factor, for an FMCG player that's trying to come into that market. Is that what it's like normally?
If you understand the market, if you have studied Nigeria a bit, at least for the last 5 to 10 years, and I'm sure most of the companies who are putting their money in here have done their homework before coming in. Nigeria is a unique market. You cannot treat this as any market around in Africa or around the world. So if you have the understanding of how this market behaves, you can make your innovations to fit into the pocket of the consumers in Nigeria. I don't think we have reached a position where it's a dead end. These are phases which every country passes through at some point in time, and I'm sure we'll cross this bridge very fast.
Right, and when you say the Nigerian market is unique, looking at other markets, other countries, which ones would you say are as unique as Nigeria?
I don't think there is any market which is a replica of Nigeria. Because Nigeria has volumes, and as we all know, Nigeria is the most populated country in Africa. With that in mind, the volume of FMCG business that happens today is in the range of about $30–35 billion. If you compare that to South Africa, which has half the population and double the volume, which means there is huge scope. And the more we improvise and localize things, I think the growth is the only way forward.
Right.
So I'm very, very optimistic.
Okay, and you did mention the population there, quite a number. And looking at, if you try to compare, the population of Nigeria, with the economic indicators, definitely you see there's a mismatch. Somewhat looking at the GDP growth and population, growth rate. So from where you are right now, what are you seeing in the next 10 years, for this industry, knowing fully well that one president comes, another one comes, another party takes over, so we have all those policy flip-flops and all of that. Well, what are you seeing?
Over the last 70 years, Nigeria has seen so many people come and go, done good jobs and bad jobs. But the people of Nigeria have been resilient and have stuck to their guns and ensured that they live their lives to the extent possible. These numbers are indicators of what we are seeing today, but not the indicator of what we can see in the future. With what is going on and in terms of investments coming in, I see these numbers growing phenomenally in the next at least 2 to 3 years. And that would be a very positive indication to the world that Nigeria is open for business, and we would be in a better position if we are able to talk maybe 2 to 3 years from now.
Right, and definitely we're trying to become a manufacturing power hub.
Yeah.
In Africa, we've seen what the likes of Morocco, they've been able to achieve, when it comes to, manufacturing and production. Have you seen any improvement when it comes to power? Because power supply, that's a major, that's what you need mostly for manufacturing and production. Have you seen improvements over the years?
Not exactly. Power has been the major challenge for any major industry to come into this country. I think two factors. One is power and one is the road infrastructure. If these two things are improved, or even if the industry sees that there is a positive effort in that direction, it will change a lot of things, and probably the flow or the inflow will improve. Today, power is a bottleneck, because if you have to put up a factory or a manufacturing setup which is of a large size, you would have to generate your own power, which becomes a bottleneck, because that adds up to your production cost, and that makes it incompetent for you to work in this, at least in the neighboring countries.
And is renewable energy helping the situation at all?
I don't think we are there as yet.
Well, it shows some prospects there.
Shows prospects, but again, a lot of investment is required.
Right. Okay, so talking about moving goods around, you've produced the goods, you're trying to get it across the country. How's that looking so far?
Better from before. Some of the initiatives that are coming up now should give us results in the coming 1 or 2 years. But from the perspective of what we used to see about 10 years back to today, there's a definite improvement.
All right. So let's imagine you're in a meeting with the president, right now of Nigeria, and he says, you know what, tell me all you need now to make business easier for you and make you bring more money into Nigeria. What would you tell him?
3 things: power, electricity, security. These 3 things will change the game.
Change the game.
Yeah.
Forever. Fantastic. I guess that's a good place to anchor it. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. Mr. Narendra Nagarkar is the CEO of Bhojsons PLC. Thank you for coming on today, and hopefully we solve those 3 problems soon.
Thank you, Mr. Ladi.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, sir. All right, we'll take a moment now. When we come back, we check on some of the circulars from the Central Bank of Nigeria. See the latest one. That's in a moment. Just stay with us.